These past couple of months, we have received loads of questions from you guys with regards to swimming, be that for training or for racing. We've had lots of very similar questions and some really, really interesting questions that we felt it was worth just making a video from so that you guys could all benefit from it. So here today on Ask GTN, I'm gonna be tackling all your swimming questions. Well, kicking things off, we have this one here from Nino M. Getty, sent in over Instagram. It says, is it better to have a total swim time of 30 minutes a day or 2 one-hour swims per week? Now, my advice to you would be, if you are starting out in swimming or triathlon, then little and often is best. So you're actually almost drip feeding your swimming throughout the week rather than taking a prolonged period of time out of the water. Now, you may have heard people talking about feel for the water. I know it sounds like a little bit of a naff phase, but it is a real thing, because basically the more often you can get into the water, increase that frequency, the more that you can work on that feel for the water and maintain that feel for the water. As you start to work on that and you progress, you can then start increasing the duration of those swims back out and reduce the frequency, and that will then work on that endurance element. But definitely as you start out, I would recommend going for those shorter 30-minute swims as opposed to maybe just 2 one-hour swims during the week. Next question, John Design sent in over Instagram, said, have you got any tips, drills to learn front crawl for someone, me, who can't swim? Well, if you're starting out, my biggest advice would be to actually just break everything down. Try not to just get in the pool and plow up and down with no real purpose or aim. You want to actually break the swim down into just bite-sized chunks, be that one length at a time or just a really short distance. That way, you're really focusing on good technique. You can then rest, recover, reset, think about what you're trying to achieve with your technique, and then head off again. So ultimately, you're trying to cover your entire swim with good or perfect technique, rather than just swimming up and down, starting to fall apart, and then actually what you're doing is encouraging bad technique towards the end of your swim. In terms of the drills, well, probably my favorite is actually the front scull. So this is when your hands are outstretched in front of you. This really works on that feel for the water that I just mentioned, and also that purchase and catch of the water. Now this is really important. It has a lot of knock-on effects if you do lose that purchase of the water and that catch in the water. Now I'm not gonna run through the specifics of that drill here within the set, because we've actually got a perfect video that you can watch now. So I want you to grab a pool buoy. We're going to isolate the use of our arms. So the pool buoy will just help to keep the legs afloat without panicking that they're sinking. We're going to lie face down in the water, and to begin with, we're going to start with our eyes out of the water and arms outstretched so your hands are in line with your shoulders. Try to keep your arms relatively straight, but not fully locked out. You want to be prepared to apply a force through them. Now sweep your hands outwards, around 30 centimeters or so. It's important you don't go too wide and that you push the water outwards too. Then turn the hands so your palms are facing more inwards and skull back towards the starting point. Now I like to imagine this as if you've got a pile of sand in front of you. You want to split that pile of sand and then bring that pile of sand back together in the middle. Now it's important that you don't flex your elbows too much at this point. This is the point that a lot of people try to do a breaststroke stroke to propel themselves forward. Don't do that. And also make sure that your elbows aren't dropping down too much. If they are below your hands, then you're not really applying pressure on the water. Our next question sent in by Ryan Downey over Facebook said, I'm not a confident swimmer. I was told I should be able to float without any effort, but I just sink. I've tried all the tricks with no luck. How does someone who is not a strong swimmer develop this skill well enough to compete in a triathlon? It's a really good question. We've got a very similar one actually here from Wikinski Voss over Facebook. Also said, I have muscular legs but suffer from sinking legs. How do I prevent this? Well, firstly, sinking legs is a pretty common problem, so you're certainly not alone on this. Normally there's just a few issues that could be causing this. You've possibly just got one of those issues. So that could be that you're lifting your head too high, and if you think of your body like a seesaw, if you lift your head too high, your feet will sink. Another one is possibly having a poor catch of the stroke, as we just discussed before. Now again, if we think of this seesaw motion, our hands are my fingertips here, your feet are my wrist here. A pivot point is actually around your chest, because that's the really buoyant part where the air is in the lungs. If we apply pressure at the front of the stroke, where my fingertips are, that will help to lift the legs up. If we're not applying that pressure down on the water the feet will start to sink. So that's why that catch and getting that purchase and the feel for the water is so important. The other is that you may have a poor kick. Now this is quite common for someone that is new to swimming, perhaps even an ex-runner. Often those coming from running or football, you have quite stiff ankles, so actually getting that flexibility in the ankle to kick can often cause us to actually have some sinking legs. Now, obviously you want to look at whatever is the issue for you and what is causing your legs to sink, whether it's one of those three. But a good drill that can really help you to work on this is the vertical kick.
Find yourself some deep water where your feet aren't touching the bottom when you get into a vertical position. Let go of the wall, cross your arms and kick on the spot in a vertical position, pointing your toes and keeping your chin above the surface of the water. Start by doing this for 20 seconds at a time and focus on driving most of your power from your upper legs.
And of course, with that drill, feel free to just whack some fins on to start off with, just to get you used to that. Next question from Johns on Instagram said, what do you prefer, pool or open water swimming? Well, personally for me, it is definitely the open water. I came from a swimming background. I swam up and down the pool following that black line on the bottom for years on end. So actually one of the main things that attracted me to triathlon was the fact that I could swim outdoors, I could explore, and I was just out into the wilderness. So yeah, that's, for me, open water swimming is amazing. I love if I could swim open water all the time, I would. I love the feeling of being out in the sea and in the choppy waters and that challenging aspect to it. That said, it is really important to keep the pool swimming there just for practicing your technique and also for actually the quality sessions where you're trying to hit time. So as much as I'd love to do all my swimming in the open water, I do always do a lot of swimming in the pool as well. Okay, another one from Ryan Cummings here on Facebook said, is there any exercise outside of the pool that I can do to help improve my swim stroke? Similar question from Finn Donovan. Finn Donovan 1 on Instagram said, what's the best way to improve our swim strength and technique if we can't get in the pool? Yeah, there's loads of exercises you can do on the land that can help to improve our swimming. I used to do loads of these with TheraBands, swim cords that would help to improve stability of my stroke and my shoulder strength, and also just the power and strength within the water. Now, this doesn't mean getting hench, but it's more about sort of finite movements that are going to really help you with that catch, that initial purchase on the water we keep talking about, and also that rotation. So one good example is actually with a TheraBand, and this is the rotator cuff exercise. So here's how to do it.
Stand tall with your shoulders set back to a neutral position. Holding the TheraBand, bring your elbow directly out to the side and in line with your shoulder. Start with your forearm parallel to the ground, then rotate your forearm as far as you can to vertical. Make sure it's a slow and controlled movement, then rotate your arm back down to the starting position. A good starting point is 2 or 3 sets of 10 repetitions on each arm.
Yeah, and do check out that video for a few more examples on shoulder stability exercises. Another option is actually to use a swim cord, and I've got a little session idea for you now.
Now, just attach that to a door handle, a table leg, or something sturdy like I have here, and then just bend forward from the hips, keep your trunk nice and taut, and then you can just pull through an entire stroke. And actually, it's a really good way of focusing on specific areas of the stroke, such as your catch, really making sure that muscles are engaging for that. Session-wise, you can follow something along the lines of 15 reps on the right arm, nice and slow and controlled, 15 reps on the left arm, and then into 3 minutes of both arms at around an intensity of 7 out of 10. And then we're going to go into 15 reps of right arm tricep kickbacks. So really fast and powerful, looking at the back end of the stroke. And the same again on the left arm, 15 reps of that. And then we're going to take 30 seconds recovery, and then we're going to do it 6 times through.
Okay, next one from Les Notage, or Lenotage, however it's said. Why do swim skins cost so much? When you look at the labels, the materials used are basically the same as general sports clothing. Yeah, we probably feel like that about most sport items. The only thing I can say is with swim skins that they are treated so they're hydrophobic, meaning they repel water, which makes them such a fast item. I actually used to work for a swim brand, and I do remember that trying to source the material and then actually get the swim skins Germans made did take a heck of a long time. So I can only imagine that's just reflected in the price given the lead time for those products. Mobes87 on Instagram said, do you recommend buoyancy shorts to aid in swimming training? Now these buoyancy shorts are essentially a wetsuit, but just the shorts, okay? So what we see a lot of people doing is wearing these during training to essentially just help them get through the swim. The swimmer in me says, no, don't use them, but I totally understand the need to use them just to get a good quality swim in, and actually maybe just to get used to that buoyancy or the feel of the buoyancy you get when you're wearing a wetsuit. My only concern would be you turn up to a race and suddenly they say, it's non-wetsuit, and you've been swimming in these buoyancy shorts for your entire training leading up to that race. You're gonna be in trouble there. Also, if you do feel the need to wear buoyancy shorts, it's probably a sign that there's something you need to work on with your stroke. So again, that swimmer in me would say, actually work out what that issue is, address that issue, and then hopefully you don't need to use those buoyancy shorts, or don't feel like you need to rely on them so much in the future. Cohen19852016 on Instagram says, while I'm swimming in outdoor pools, my mid-session, I become very cold. Any tips? Personally, something I've really struggled with as well. Even in really hot climates, often you get the open air pools and they don't heat them because they just hope that the sun will heat that up, but they do get really quite cold. So I would quite often get to mid-session and be very cold myself. I know a lot of athletes that train out in these locations regularly, and what they choose to do is actually swim in wetsuits. Because they know they're going to be swimming in these pools quite a lot, they actually have a spare suit so that they do their training in those wetsuits and they're not ruining their race suits. The other option, I guess, is just swim really hard and don't take much recovery, but it's probably not a good option in the long run. Robert Hansel on Instagram said, how can you avoid boredom during pool sessions? Well, if you find an answer to this, please do tell me, because I've struggled with it for years. In all seriousness though, I've got a few methods. One for me is just literally, I always train with others. I know that I really struggle on my own, and actually I struggle with the motivation to get a session done. So I always head to swimming with others if I can, or train in a squad. We've got a colleague here actually at GTN who always swims with those underwater headphones. So I believe they work through bone conduction. So he's always got some tunes playing, banging out underwater. So he really enjoys that. That keeps him going. Another thing I did used to do, not so much anymore, but I used to actually just play around with shutting my eyes for as long as I can. So I'd literally swim down the pool, close my eyes, and try and get as far as I can with my eyes closed. That would mean swimming into the wall, doing my tumble turn with my eyes closed. I'd count my strokes. The furthest I got actually was 200 meters, but the only reason I stopped was because I guess I was slowing down so much because I was so scared about hitting the wall, or face planting the wall, that the people behind me started to catch me up. But I might try that again, see how far I get next time. I probably don't try that in a public session though. Jake Howell on Instagram said, what's the best way to find your stroke/breathing cadence for a new swimmer? Good question. Generally speaking, we normally recommend trying to breathe every 3 strokes. The reason being that it sort of enforces a good symmetry of the stroke. It's what we call bilateral breathing. That said, I actually mostly breathe every 2 strokes, and I know actually a lot of really good swimmers also breathe every 2 strokes. So don't actually start compromising your swimming for the sake of just trying to hold your breath or trying to breathe bilaterally into either side. There's no real set method or breathing or cadence. But yeah, trying to breathe every 2 to 3 strokes is a good idea to start off with. And just really make sure that as soon as you've taken that breath, you're exhaling underwater, you're trickling that breath straight away. And so when you go to take that next breath, you've fully exhaled and ready to go. Well, that is it from Ask GTN. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do hit that thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more from GTN, just click on the globe and subscribe. And if you'd like to see another Ask GTN video on race day prep, you can see that by clicking just down here. If you'd like to see 3 drills to improve your front crawl technique, which covers that front skull drill that we were talking about before, you can see that by clicking just down here.